Well, hello and welcome to Frame.io Live. My name is Ryan. I'm an enterprise customer success manager based out of New York, and today I am going to be taking you through your ultimate Frame.io admin guide. There's a couple things that we are going to go over today. So, as a brief agenda, we are just going to walk through exactly what an admin is. We're also going to chat a little bit about some of the ways that you can set up your account, including what teams and projects are. Also, I want to walk through a couple of common examples that I see as a customer success manager just to help get you in the right headspace for setting up and optimizing your account for success. But with that said, this is a live session. So if you have questions or if there's anything you would like to get out of today's session, feel free to find that comment or that chat bubble now and would love to hear where you're tuning in from and if there's anything you want to get out of today. That also goes for as the session goes along. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop those in the chat and I will get to them as quickly as I can. As a quick aside, we are recording this session, so it will be available to anybody who signed up previously. You'll get this via email. Also, if you're watching this as pre-recorded content on the website, welcome to you as well. I'm going to go ahead and hop on in and share my screen. Let's just chat with exactly what an admin is. Then we can hop into my account and talk about some of the settings that are involved there too. The admins have the ability to create and manage workspaces. Only the admins can do that. Admins also have the ability to add, remove, and manage users. That's critical, especially when you're dealing with the number of licenses that you have. I want to make sure that the right people have the right access. The admins also have the ability to manage some of the global settings that are associated with the account. I'll hop into that in just a bit. And then typically our admins will work with folks like myself if there's additional licenses or other content that needs to be added into the account. Let's go ahead and just start by talking about a couple of common terms that you'll hear me say over the course of today, starting with teams. So teams are actually the highest level of organization that you could build out within your account. So these are the different workspaces where you could actually see your projects and your content. If you're an enterprise customer, you could create as many teams as you would like, but there's a couple of elements of visibility, permissions, and access that you'll want to consider when you actually think about how you set up your teams and who gets invited into these spaces as well. In this particular example, you could see I have a team called Green Knight, also one called Marcel the Shell. Various users are invited to view content on a per team basis. So users could actually be invited to view specific teams. For example, if you only have an individual working on Green Knight, you can invite them into that team exclusively. Teams also have a couple of levels of visibility and permissions that are set by you as the admin to determine the level of privacy that you prefer within your account. You can also hide teams to specific individuals if desired, especially if you're working on a more black box project. But each team can also have its own branding associated. I'll talk about that in just a bit. And then within teams, there are projects. So you can see here within my Green Knight team, there's several projects that exist. That's this section here in the box. But within this project, I have 30-second teaser, full trailer, and also archived. Projects will always exist within teams, and once a user is added into a team, they can actually view every single public project that is associated. And then within your projects will be files and folders. This is what makes up the content of the projects and ultimately what occupies your account storage. They're not visible on the left-hand side. You do have to click into the project in order to see them, but you can also create a structure that makes sense for you within your project. So you can create a whole bunch of different folders. You can move content around. Also make sure that if there's any version stacks or any other features that you're utilizing, that will always be within the media tab within your account. Most commonly as a customer success manager, I work with brands, agencies, and folks in the media and entertainment space. So I do want to use those three examples just as a guideline for some of the common ways that I see accounts set up. Certainly, hopefully this will be helpful for you to be able to determine some of the ways that you can set up and optimize your account. So in the past, I've seen brands organize their teams specifically based on seasonal campaigns or various business units like marketing, internal, or production. But you can make teams different mediums like broadcast or social, or maybe even a region or location if you have teams based in different cities or locations. Remember, if you're an enterprise customer, you could create as many teams as you would like. I typically see projects in the brand space as independent video projects. So for content you're working on for a specific use case, like the stage of development, maybe even production or editorial. And then files and folders could be broken out based on an approval stage, maybe even pre-production materials like proposal decks and lookbooks. Within Frame, you could also house Microsoft Word files any PDFs. So you could really use us for pre-production in addition to post-production as well. For agencies, this obviously functions a little bit different because you have clients that you work with. Agencies, typically I'll see teams organized based on those individual clients or the groupings of clients based on various business segments or regional offices. Typically, if you're inviting in those users into that space, you'd want to make sure that there is some separation. So creating those individual teams can certainly just add a little bit of privacy. Projects then can be organized based on campaigns or projects for a specific client, or perhaps based on the region where production is located. And then files and folders could be a set of deliverables or a specific folder for each individual project. And then media and entertainment. In the past, typically I see teams either set as specific film or television projects, maybe even a specific series. So going a little bit deeper, those projects could really be organized based on anything you'd like. But I see a different season of a serialized campaign pretty commonly, or distinct business segments. For a film project, for example, maybe development, production, editorial, or marketing. And then files and folders could be structured and customized based on your editorial review and approval process. But now that I've covered a couple of the ways that you can actually organize this content, I do want to hop into exactly who is who. I know that I've mentioned admins. Admins obviously have the ability to make global changes to the account. This is probably some of you here on the call. Admins are the only ones that can actually create teams and also manage the global settings. Like I mentioned, we'll hop to that in just a moment. Directly beneath the admin is a team manager. The team manager has some, but not all admin access. They do have the ability to actually add in those users, but they don't have the ability to create a team. I would highly recommend that you have at least one team manager, especially if you're a larger team in the instance where an admin isn't present. Team members. If I were to guess, a majority of your users will be team members. They're added on a per team basis. So any team member that is added into a team by default will have access to every single project within a team. This is important because then those users can actually upload content, they can modify and delete files, they can add in collaborators, share out externally, and of course, review and collaborate within Frame.io. Collaborators are then added on a per project basis. They have the ability to upload content and comment, but they actually cannot delete other users' files, add in other users, or share out externally. So the big difference between the team members and the collaborators being that team members have access at the team level, so every single project, whereas collaborators just have access at the project level, and they don't have the ability to actually share out externally. And then lastly, the reviewer. The reviewer never occupies a license. They don't take up a seat, but they're an individual who will be receiving a link that you share with them. They can annotate and comment. They can also change the status or download content if desired as well. Any questions about user roles and types, please let me know. But I do want to hop now into my Frame.io account and just talk about some of the ways that you could set up your account and go through the settings together. Let's do a brief tour of what you're looking at. We are completely web-based, so I'm just here under app.frame.io. For any new folks that are joining, welcome in. If you have any questions as I go along today, please let me know. Over here on the left, you're going to see potentially a couple of tiles. This just indicates that you can use the same login, but can access a different account. So let's say you're a freelancer and you have a project you're working on under Ryan's account and another under primary ad agency. You can just switch or toggle between those two different accounts without having to sign out and re-sign in. You're also going to see the name of the account up here at the top. If you are an enterprise customer, you will have access to a secure inbox. This is just an easy location for you to access any content that has been shared with you. And then that team and project structure you can see right here associated with my account. So for example, we have our creative services team, our Frame.io live series, and our shared projects. If I was to open up a number of these teams, you're then going to see the full list of projects that are listed here. Specifically within my Frame.io live series, you can see that I have my drip ad campaign, and then over here is where I have that media that I can access. I can access my media here from the top, and then can also see any review or presentation links that I have historically shared out from my account. That's a location where your users can keep track of any review links that you've shared, make amendments to them, add or remove content. C2C connections stands for camera to cloud connections. This is applicable no matter what your account type is, but this is where you're able to manage any hardware that you want to be synced up with Frame.io, which would enable you to upload content the second that you hit cut. Over here on the right, you can see a list of all of the users that are a part of this space. So I can see project members. You can see here that I just have an overview of all of the users that are welcomed into this specific project. I also can share out externally, determine if I want to upload new content. I also can custom sort or determine the view of my content, whether that's in list format or also in thumbnail. Alternating every other week, I do lead a session that goes a little bit deeper into the review and approval, sharing, uploading process. So I'd love to see you back again next week. But let's talk about some of the admin specific components of the account today. So I'm going to hit just up here in the top left, the name of my account, clicking there. And then these settings here are only available for our admins. So let's go to manage users and it will take me back here into my settings. This account tab is only visible to our admins. This personal tab is visible to everybody on the account. So if you are an admin, you should be able to see this now. If you only see your personal, that would indicate that you most likely are a team member on your account. Let's start with users, teams, and projects, these three tabs, because this will inform how we create teams and how we actually invite users into our space. You can see here under this users tab that I have a handful of users. There's 88 total users that are a part of my workspace. Now I can see that. But these three tabs will enable you to invite in users, create teams, and manage your projects. Not only can you use this to invite in new folks, but you also can use it to manage your account moving forward. For example, if I wanted to filter to determine the highest role that exists on my account, the team that individuals are a part of, and any projects that they're associated with, I have the ability to search for those users and filter based on this criteria. So let's say that I'm an admin on my account. I've been working now for about 3 or 4 months within my account, and I want to see who are my team members that are associated with a specific team. So let's see, I want to see my team members that are associated with my Frame.io live series. You can see here that now I get a snapshot of individual users that are a part of my space. And you can also see pending users that are a part of this space. The benefit to this filter is I also can determine their last activity date and also the teams and projects that they're a part of. So not only am I able to filter to determine who is a part of my account, but I also have the ability to invite in new users, which can be done just up here in the top right corner. By clicking this new users option, I'm going to get a pop-up, which will allow me to enter in a user's email address. Let's go and invite in Jane Doe, for example. I can determine what role I want this user to be a part of. Do I want them to be an admin, team member, or a collaborator? Let's leave them as a team member and select the team that we want them to be a part of. I can multi-select if desired, but let's go ahead and just keep it as this team for now. Once I click invite, then that user is going to receive an email where they're able to sign in or create an account. If they already have an account, it'll just take them over into this new workspace. I also have the ability to export this view. So if I wanted to see it in a CSV format or wanted to share with my boss, exactly who is who, I can see an audit trail there. Under this Teams tab, very similar, I'm able to also determine which user and what access is available within my team. I can see a full snapshot of every team that is associated with my account, the team members, paid seats, projects, storage, and access that are all associated. Let's create a new team together. Remember, creating a team is that hierarchy, that big workspace. Again, if you're an enterprise customer, you could create as many as you would like. We call that multi-team management. This is a benefit of enterprise account. I am going to drop a support article in the chat that just dives a little bit deeper into what it means to use multi-team management. But from here, let's give our team a name. Let's call it Winter Campaign. We can then determine the level of access: open, restricted, or invite only. Open means that users, even if they're not a part of this space, can still see this team and also join that team. If it's restricted, it means that those users have the ability to view that team and they can request to join that team, meaning that a team member or an admin must accept their invite before they're a part of that space. And then invite only will be the highest level of security that you can apply to a team, meaning that it's not visible at all to any users, and they must be invited by a team manager or an admin explicitly. If you remember that slide that I showed earlier, team members do have the ability to invite in collaborators, but if it's invite only, that would not be the case here. Let's leave this project open for now. There is a soft allocation limit that I could add, just an internal allocation. This would just enable you to stay within the confines that you would like to within this specific team. I just dropped another article in the chat here. But this would enable me to determine Let's say I only want 10 users to be a part of this team, and I want to allocate 1 terabyte of space to their project. Once either one of these two internal allocations are hit, I, as the admin, will see a banner up at the top of my account indicating that my team has gone over the internal allocation limits. Just a fail safe to ensure that you're staying within the parameters that you would like to. And then a static watermark. This isn't as popular of a feature, I'd say, because it burns a watermark into any internally added projects and assets. So if you are hyper security focused, I would certainly encourage you to use the static watermark. But if you don't burn into the assets that are uploaded into the account, you can leave that off for now. Enterprise customers can still add a watermark to be applied at the time of share. So let's go ahead and save and create this team now. And then I'm going to get a second question of who I want to invite into this space. Let's go ahead and invite me, my colleague Sean. That is also, I can see all of my pending users that are right down here as well. Remember, we added John and Jane Smith. So I can invite those users in, and then by default, they're now going to be a part of my winter campaign team. Any questions around creating teams or these settings, please let me know. And then diving a little bit deeper, this projects tab looks very similar. It will just enable you to be able to multi-select projects, get a high-level snapshot of the parent team, project members, paid seats, and I can also filter based on team or project member. So again, you as an admin, maybe 6 months from now, you want to determine who is a part of my space, who's in my winter campaign, and what do they do? We just created my winter campaign, so there's no projects that exist there. But if we wanted to look within our Frame.io live series team, you can see who created it, also the storage and the allocation that's associated. Projects are created at the team level, so this would just give you an overview. You would actually create a project by going back into your account, and underneath the team that you've created, so our winter campaign, let's use that as an example. Right here, there's a plus button, which would enable me to then create a project. So let's say we wanted to make this one editorial. I can determine the team. I can determine the level of visibility within the project. So I can apply both the visibility at the team level and at the project level. So if I make this private, it means that admins and team managers, they can also access that project, but it will mean that users must be invited in. I also can determine the download permissions for collaborators, and I also can adjust some notification settings. So I want users to be notified when various actions occur within my account, including new comments, new media, new person, totally up to you. But there we go. I just created a project. And then if I was to go back here to my Manage Projects tab, I then can determine within my team what projects exist. So now you can see that this editorial project is here, and I get an overview. Similar to the Teams and the Users tab, I also can export this view as well. A couple benefits here. You can just gain some transparency into the account, access and usage. You also can manage many users at once, so you can easily bulk add or remove those users, and also search and export any user data that's associated. Any questions from the group, please let me know. Happy to get to those within the chat. Let's talk a little bit about some of our account settings that exist here too. I could walk you through them. Download permissions. You can set at a global view who exactly you want to be able to download project assets and also allow shares. An example that I used yesterday, we filmed some internal content and I had an editor who's working on my project. I welcomed them into my project, but I didn't have it set where a collaborator had the ability to download. So this editor, she sent me a message. She said, hey, I don't have the ability to download this content. So this is a perfect example of just ensuring that the right people have the right access to be able to do what you need them to do. She was going to download the assets that I'd shared with her in order to upload it into Premiere, but it's really up to you who you want to be able to have access to downloads. Invites. This is not a default setting to your account. We can enable this for you, but you can disallow team members from inviting in collaborators. So if you as an admin say, I want total control over the account, I don't want to allow my team members to invite in collaborators, we can enable this for you so you can disallow that feature. Secure sharing. This is also an enterprise-specific feature, but it will require that at the time of sharing a review link, those users must sign into a Frame.io account in order to view it. Just means that there's an extra password behind that review link that would require that those users sign in. You can make it default. It's an invite-only link, as we call it. You also can determine which users can share out public links if this is a default. So let's say you have it set as invite only, meaning that any reviewer must sign into a Frame.io account to view the content I've shared with them. I also can determine which users have the ability to share out any public links. So in this instance, let's let team members, but we want to give them a gentle reminder that every time a review link goes out, it must be invite only. C2C connections, that's that camera to cloud connections that I mentioned earlier. You also have the ability to determine which users can manage the camera to cloud connections. Obviously, if you have members of your crew that are setting this up, but they're only collaborators, just make sure that they have access so they can uh, adjust any settings and make sure that your hardware is synced up. If you have questions about camera to cloud, let me know. It's a really cool feature. You can use some external recorders even if you don't have a camera that has it directly built in. I just shared an article around that. If you have any questions, please let me know. I even use Filmic Pro on my phone for camera to cloud. Really cool technology. Watermark ID. This is also an enterprise-specific feature, but you can require a watermark on all internal assets. That's an option that can be clicked on here. And then you also can require it on all externally shared links as well. So I can create my own watermark ID template. You see that I have a couple here, but let's create a new one together. Let's say that we are working with a specific client. I'm just going to call this one client number 1. I then can edit text-based watermark features. So I want the name of the user, their email address, the user's IP address, the date and time, and then I could add any custom text too. So let's say this has a specific project name. We can add that in. I also can adjust the text ranging from huge to small. Let's go ahead and make this one large. I also can adjust the color. See, I can determine what color I want this to be. Let's go ahead and just leave it white for now. I can also adjust the opacity. So if I want it to be a little bit more visible to those users, I can do so. I even can allow this text to scroll. So let's say I want this scrolling down at the bottom. We can save that. Looks like I already had a template named client 1, so let's rename it to client 2. But now that template that I created will be applicable and available for any users that are sharing out external content. The last feature that I'd like to draw your attention to here is for the Apple TV app. It's especially helpful if you have folks that are reviewing content in a boardroom or maybe at home. This Apple TV app is a requirement that a secure share link is sent in order to access it, but you can also require a 4-digit passcode for those users that are viewing that content. Any questions from the group out there, please give me a shout. But moving on to groups. Groups branding and billing are also tabs that only the admins have the ability to control. Groups just means that you can create a group of users who might be common users that receive review links. So let's say there's a couple of stakeholders that you know every single time are going to be reviewing review links. You could just create a group of those users' email addresses, just making it a little bit easier to determine who is receiving those links. So let's go ahead and do reviewers for project. And then I'm able to actually invite in these folks. So I can do Jane Smith. Let's go ahead and just add myself. But you see here, I can add in that group. And then when I go to share out a link externally, I could just type in the name of this group, reviewers for project, and then it will automatically send to all of those users. So let's go ahead and see this in real time. If I was to go over to a project, I have an asset that I want to share out, share it for review. Underneath this section here, right, I actually can add people to determine who I want to share it with. You see here that once I type in reviewers, I'm getting a list of all of the groups that match that. So reviewers for projects, it will notify those folks via email, and it will send it to those users as opposed to having to input their individual email addresses every time. You see here that I'm just typing in my name here, and I have a couple of different accounts. So if I wanted to just easily send it to the same stakeholders, I would highly recommend creating a group. Branding. Branding applies at the team level, at the notification level, and also for presentation pages. So you can apply a specific team name or team logo here associated with your account if desired. Branded email notifications can also be determined so that way anytime your users receive an email, they can match either your branding or their branding. You see here that we have some Frame.io colors, both the accent color and the logo. So you certainly could add in a logo or change up the color if you'd like to. And then presentation pages. They differ from review links in that it's more of a status project. So the the presentation pages will not allow users to comment back or annotate at all. It's more of just a finished or polished project. You can add in a couple of accent colors, some background colors or text colors as well, just to add an extra level of customization to those presentation pages. Tom asked if the group setting is for reviewers and not for team members. That's correct. Yes, the group settings would be for any reviewers that are receiving those links. Good question. And then billing. This tab is only available for admins, so I would be careful just to make sure that the right people have access to this billing information. You can get an overall snapshot of your account. It'll list out your plan, storage, projects. You also can see your billing history and your payment methods. So if you're not on an enterprise plan, you also can update your billing details here or also request an invoice. Let's go through these personal settings together as well. Again, any questions out there, please let me know. Team directory. This is what I was talking about earlier when actually creating those teams. Users can see them or not. So I don't know if you saw within my account, but I'm actually not a part of the Sundance 2024 team. But I can still see it and I can join it. So this would determine if you want it to be open, visible, or restricted. I can also see a full list of the users. So if something's restricted, I can't see it at all. Email and password is just that. It would enable your users to change up their email and password. We do have multi-factor authentication and for our enterprise customers, SSO. So if that's something you want to enable for your account, we certainly can do so. Profile. Over here on the left-hand side. I would recommend that your team members at least add in their name, if not a photo. This is what will show up anytime your users leave a comment. So obviously you want to know who's leaving comments that are associated with your account. I would certainly make sure that your users update this as well. Notifications. We do have an email digest that goes out with whatever number of frequency or timing frequency you would like. Mine's set to hourly. That just means that every hour I'll receive a notification indicating actions that have occurred within my account. I can also have this be immediately, meaning that I'll receive a notification anytime anybody does anything in the account, or I also can change it to daily, every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes. You also can change your time zone. This could be applicable, especially if you want your timestamps to match that of what you're doing, and also to make sure that if you add a expiration date, it will match that of the date and time of your current time zone. Project subscriptions, I think this is a great place where you can edit some of your notifications. Remember, if you're a team member, you have access to every single project. Certainly a possibility that you're not working on every project. For example, if I work in social media, I might need to see outerwear, but I might not need to see the sheets and pitch decks. So I, as the user, can go in here and I can determine, yep, I want to receive notifications for all of these different projects or not at all. Apps and integrations. We do have a couple of native apps. We have a pretty awesome app for iPad and iPhone. We also have an external app called the Transfer app where you could download and upload content. Highly recommend you checking that out. We also have a couple of cloud integrations with Vimeo and Slack. Vimeo, you can publish content directly there from Frame, and with Slack, you can receive notifications via Slack when actions occur within your account. But I would like to draw your attention to these applications, namely Final Cut, Premiere, and After Effects. We have a couple native integrations here. It just means that there's a secondary panel that will live within those NLEs, which would enable your editors to review and approve within Frame, see any comments that have been associated with the timeline while also editing at the same time. Once you download this, you then can update it within your Creative Cloud subscription, but a really wonderful feature that will save you and your editors a whole bunch of time. Connected apps will show any apps that are associated with your account. You see here that I have Filmic Pro and then some cookie preferences if you feel so inclined. We also have a developer portal that's available down here. So if you are passionate about viewing some endpoints or building out some workflows yourself, you can apply all of that here within the developer portal. And that about covers it. We have covered a lot of ground today, talking through your ultimate Frame.io admin guide. Any questions, please let me know now. But I do want to draw your attention to this little question mark up in the top right corner of your account. We have a support team that's available 24/7. So if you click here, you're going to get a little chat bubble down on the bottom. These are actually live people that are chatting right now. They're there to answer any questions that you might have. If you're an enterprise customer, they'll also direct you to your account manager or vice versa, especially if you reach out after hours. We're happy to help. But this team is awesome. Any questions you have, you can reach them here. The last thing I want to leave you with, unless there's any questions from the group, is an article that just chats a little bit about enterprise specific. I know that I've mentioned a couple of enterprise specific features. If you have any questions, that chat or the article that I just dropped in the chat could certainly be a good place to just learn a little bit more about those features, especially if you are planning to scale out or have some hyper specific security needs. I'm not seeing any questions come through in the chat, but thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was a helpful session to get you started, or for any admins out there, just knowing exactly who is who within your account and some of the best ways that you're able to set it up. But on behalf of our entire team, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining me today. If you're watching this pre-recorded, give us a shout if you have any questions afterwards. Thank you again so much. Take care wherever you're tuning in from. Thanks for letting us be a part of your creative process. Bye now.